There's always something new to look at when it comes to the field of archaeology, even if not all archaeology is done in fields. Incredible new items and artifacts turn up all over the world all the time. There might even be something amazing found under the ground near you today. We never get tired of finding out more about the people and places who came before us. So here's a collection of some of our very favorite amazing archaeological discoveries of recent times. You can understand how small things can get lost for centuries and evade the attention of scientists and researchers, but you'd have thought that a whole city would be a lot harder to miss. Apparently, that isn't the case, because an ancient lost city turned up in Israel in 2019, and it's more than 5,000 years old. Based on the foundations of the old city that have been unearthed, it had enough room to home up to 6,000 people, and included carefully planned roads, fortifications, and a central temple. The site, which is known as En Esur, was hiding another secret beneath it. There are the remains of yet another ancient city. This one, 2,000 years older than the last. Based on the size of the settlement, historians now believe that this would have been the most significant city in its region for several thousand years. The archaeologists who found it have even compared it to a sort of Bronze Age New York. As this is still quite a new discovery, digging work at the site is still ongoing, so there may be even more wonders to be recovered from En Esur in the future. The stories and legends of many civilizations around the world involve giants and dwarfs. Human beings, much larger or smaller than those that exist today, but perfectly proportioned. If they ever existed at all, they haven't survived to the modern age. But the skeleton of a dwarf recently discovered in China adds a little weight to the old myths. This skeleton, which is approximately 5,000 years old, is said to be of a human being who suffered from an extremely rare form of dwarfism. Curiously, it was buried differently to the other bodies found around it. All of the other skeletons, which were of average height, had their hands placed on top of their bodies. The smaller skeleton had its hands behind its back as if it had been bound or tied. Less than 40 examples of skeletons of this kind of dwarfism, known as skeletal dysplasia, have been recovered from the burial sites of the ancient world. It's hard to know how the people of the time would have reacted to this small human. They may have treated him as an outsider, or they may have revered him as a god. If you want to preserve something, you freeze it. That's the reason you have a freezer unit in your home, to prevent food from rotting or going off. Nature is the greatest freezer of all, though, and we can prove that by showing you this puppy. Amazingly, despite the fact that it still has most of its fur and even still has its whiskers, teeth, and eyelashes, this unfortunate dog is more than 18,000 years old. The remains of the dog, which died before it reached adulthood, were found in the permafrost in Yakutsk, in the far eastern reaches of Russia. Several ancient creatures have recently been recovered from East Russia's melting permafrost, but few are as old or as complete as this puppy. The person who found it was looking for mammoth teeth, but we suspect they were happy enough with this one-of-a-kind discovery. Although it has the appearance of a dog, and has been described as a dog by the team of scientists who are studying it, there's an outside chance that it's actually a wolf puppy. Genome sequencing will hopefully reveal its true species in the near future. While finding a tomb full of ancient weapons is always amazing, some weapons are more useful than others. We're used to finding weapons made by our ancestors out of steel, bronze, stone, or wood. There must have been something extraordinary about whoever was buried with these crystal weapons in Spain 5,500 years ago. The megalithic tomb dated back to the Neolithic era and was found in an area called Valencina de la Concepción. The findings from the tomb's interior, which were first reported in early 2018, were remarkable. We're talking more than 10,000 amber beads, arrowheads made of crystal, and a beautiful transparent dagger blade made of crystal too. The 9-inch long dagger comes with a sheath, but despite extensive testing and examination, Archaeologists have been unable to determine precisely where the crystal material came from. We also don't know the identity of the person buried in the tomb. A dagger like this would have been valuable beyond imagination in prehistoric Europe, but the tomb doesn't appear to belong to a tribal leader or a royal. We need more clues to solve this riddle, and right now, we don't have them. Sometimes our familiarity with the shape and size of certain objects in the modern age can cloud our judgment and perception of ancient artifacts when they're discovered. That's why the world of archaeology got very excited about this Russian discovery from September 2019. It has the exact same proportions, shape, and style of a decorative case for an iPhone. The pose of the female skeleton it was found with helps to sell the idea that it is a phone case. They have one arm across their stomach and the other under the chin, as if they were watching the phone screen when they passed away. Despite the appearance, this is actually an ancient belt buckle. It's made of jet, and it's inlaid with tiny pearl beads. The buckle was found directly over the woman's pelvis, suggesting that she was fully dressed when she was buried 2,100 years ago. But everything apart from the buckle has since rotted away. Even though it isn't a phone case, it's still something of a mystery. Decorative buckles like this are generally only found in the graves of male warriors. This must have been a woman of some importance. Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky, USA, is an excellent place to visit even if you're not interested in archaeological discoveries. The scenery is incredible and attracts thousands of visitors every year, but none of them come expecting to see sharks. That's because there's no large body of water anywhere near the area. Apparently, though, there once was, and we can say that with confidence thanks to the discovery of a fossilized shark's head sticking out of the walls of one of the caves. Although unbelievably, the head is more than 330 million years old. That means it comes from the late Mississippian era, during which oceans covered much of what is now North American continent. The remains of around 20 different species of ancient shark have been located within the cave, but none of them rival the head for age or size. The jaw alone is almost 3 feet long, so the whole creature would have had whale-like proportions. The discovery was made in January 2020, so excavation work is still ongoing, and this part of the park is currently closed off to the public, while experts continue to dig. The modern city of Abu Dhabi is one of the most rapidly growing and developing places in the world. There's always something new being built, and it's full of incredible technology and futuristic structures. Even among all that novelty, however, there's still room for ancient history. In June of 2019, archaeologists working at Hili 2 inside the Al Ain World Heritage Site came across fingerprints in ancient bricks, and they've worked out that they're the signature of a builder who put them there more than 3,000 years ago. Their purpose was more likely to be practical than decorative. It's thought that the craftsmen of the era made indentations in mud bricks to hold mortar, which in turn made it easier for the walls they were building to stick together. The whole site dates back to the Iron Age and is noted for the complexity of its irrigation system, which may have been the most advanced on the planet at the time it was created. There's a theory about wine and whiskey, which says the older the drink is, the better it is to taste. We don't doubt that the theory is true, but we would still have reservations about trying this Scottish whiskey, which was found close to King Ussie toward the end of 2015. The bottle it's in is airtight, but the liquid that's inside was more than 120 years old at the time of its discovery. Construction workers digging at a road bridge came across a capsule buried below its surface, and it appears that the capsule was buried deliberately as a time capsule on 29th of September, 1894. A newspaper from that day was waiting inside the capsule along with the aforementioned whiskey and a paper scroll. All of the items were carefully retrieved from the site by the construction company and have been donated to nearby Highland Folk Museum. Back when it was buried, the only traffic that would have passed over the bridge would have been carriages drawn by horses. So far, nobody has opened the whiskey bottle to taste its contents, but in theory, it should be fine. Not all ancient discoveries are pleasant ones. The last thing an archaeologist ever wants to find is a lead tablet that claims to put a curse on whoever finds it. But that's exactly what was waiting at the bottom of a well in Athens in February 2020. There were dozens of ancient tablets sunken into the well, all of which were around 2,500 years old, and invoked the gods of the underworld to curse and afflict whoever lays eyes on them. The old well is within the borders of Keramikos, which at the time of the creation of the tablets would have been the largest graveyard and burial site in all of Athens, and possibly even all of Greece. It's likely that the cursed tablets were placed in the well to discourage anyone from coming to disturb the bodies of those who were buried there. Given that digging up the dead is part and parcel of what archaeologists do for a living, that's a bit awkward. While it's doubtful that any of the curses written on the tablets actually work, they would have had one evil effect because they're made of lead, and there are so many of them down there they would have poisoned all the water coming from the well. The ice of Antarctica can preserve almost anything. It's so cold there that anything left there and then encased in the ice will appear exactly as it was when it was dropped, even if it takes a century for someone to find it again. That's even true of something as delicate as negatives from a reel of film. Conservators of the New York Heritage Trust were working on restoring an early Antarctic exploration hut in 2014 when they came across a box that wasn't recorded on the hut's inventory, trapped inside a block of ice. And when they got it out and opened it, they found 22 cellulose negatives. They were in a fragile state, but through slowly and carefully separating, cleaning, and then digitizing the negatives, we can now see these century-old images, and it seems that they come from Ernest Shackleton's famous Antarctic mission of 1914, known as the Ross Sea Party. Some of the photos show Alexander Stevens on the deck of Shackleton's boat, the Aurora. This is a truly rare glimpse into history. Very occasionally, an archaeological discovery turns up that's so unusual that other archaeologists doubt its authenticity. That's very much the case with this mask, which was allegedly found at the southern Judean desert in Israel in late 2018. The Israeli Antiquities Authority has verified the find and claims that the ornate face covering is 9,000 years old. Other experts from around the world aren't so sure. 16 of these masks in total have been found over the years, but this one is by far the most ornate and the best preserved. All of the masks are made from stone and have unique facial features. One theory suggests that they're supposed to represent the faces of the recently deceased and may have been used in burial rites. Holes in the sides of the masks indicate that string or rope was once passed through them, allowing them to be worn easily. They may even have had human hair attached to them to complete the look. Morag Kursel, professor of anthropology at DePaul University, now plans to study all of the masks with a view to determining whether or not some or all of them are forgeries. While there's some debate over whether or not the stone masks found in Israel should be classed as decorative items, there's no debating the aesthetic qualities of this strangely beautiful Tibetan skull. It's around 300 years old, and there are more questions about it than there are answers. The head turned up in an antique store in Vienna, Austria in 2017, and the owner of the store had a strange tale to tell about its origins. According to him, the man who gave it to the store said that the skull came from his ancestor, a doctor who had worked throughout Asia. Apparently, he was given the skull as a gift in return for treating the abbot of a Buddhist monastery in Tibet. Researchers have since studied the skull and claim that the decorative lettering carved onto it is Devanagari script. The figures are harder to decipher, and the meaning of the piece as a whole is unknown. No other examples of skulls like this from Tibet have ever been recorded, and the authenticity of the piece is impossible to prove. Regardless of whether the origin story is true or not, it's a fabulous work of art. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.